Hi everyone, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining our workshop today. So for those of you who don't know anything about Uprise Academy and what we do, our purpose is to get people like you the skills, mindset and community to launch companies, side hustles or careers which are filled with purpose, growth and autonomy through our programs. And yeah, I mean, I feel like now more than ever, we're kind of really starting to question what we spend our time doing and the kinds of careers that we want to have. So yeah, I'm really excited to bring you this workshop today, all about launching a purpose-driven career. The workshop is going to be led by our head of product, who's here with me, Stephen. So yeah, just before we get started, a couple of sort of housekeeping things. If you can grab a pen and paper or notes on your laptop or phone is also fine, because there'll be a few exercises that we'll be going through. If you need any help at any point or you have any kind of urgent questions, feel free to just pop them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and shout. That's absolutely fine as well. And we would love you to have your cameras on so that we don't feel like we're talking to a load of black boxes, but obviously it's completely up to you if you want to keep them off. And there will be some time for questions and a chat at the end as well. So if you want to stay on for that, then please do feel free. And I think that's everything from me. So Stephen, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Yeah, let me just share my screen. Give me one sec. Right. Cool. First of all, big welcome from me as well. My name is Stephen, as you probably know by now. I'm the head of product and mainly in charge of the Find Your Why part of our programs. And I've been also a program director on multiple programs that we've done here at Uprise. Yeah, absolutely great to have you all here. As Katie said, I'd love for you to put on your cameras as well. We have a small group today, so we can make it a little bit more interactive, which is actually great and more fun. Throughout this workshop, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat, or even feel free to unmute yourself and just throw them out there, and maybe I can answer them on the spot or maybe at the end. Right, let's get started. So for today, we're going to think about what it means to launch a purpose-driven career. And as I was designing this workshop, it sort of dawned on me that more and more that a purpose-driven career is more actually of a lifestyle than it is a job or a profession. And it's really about how you decide to live life and how your career plays into that, as opposed to your career being your life in itself. So let's think a little bit about what a purpose-driven career actually is. For us, a purpose-driven career is really about three things. So the first one is impact. Are you really adding value to the world? Or is it true that you're basically in what some might call, apologies for my language, but a bullshit job, right? A job where even the person doing it is feeling that it adds no value whatsoever. Second thing we tend to look at is growth. Are you actually learning and growing as a human being beyond the corporate ladder? Is there more than just promotion or some other basically made up badge of honor? Are you really growing in what you do day to day? And the third element is meaning. Are you working on things that are bigger than yourself? Do you experience a sense of belonging? Does the story you tell yourself about your career make sense to you? And does it feel intrinsically rewarding? So those are the three pillars that we build our purposeful careers around. Now, another element of this is what we call a minimum viable person. So basically that means that besides your career, you're also taking care of yourself. So what we call a minimum viable person, as opposed to minimum viable product, which is very often used in the startup world, is someone who takes care of their physical and mental health whilst working on the things that are meaningful to them. And this is also what I mean by that a purpose-driven career is more of a lifestyle. And we believe that being an MVP really is incredibly important. It provides you also with the resilience to keep going, because working on meaningful things can be very, very tough. And also it helps you to operate in the unknown when you're feeling good in yourself and in your body. So basically, in a nutshell, your business is really only as viable as you are. If you're not taking care of yourself, it's impossible to have a purpose-driven career. It's not necessarily the easiest road. So why MVP and why purpose-driven? The aim is to work towards a career and lifestyle that is intrinsically motivating. Doing it because you believe you're doing the right thing, as opposed to doing things because they're extrinsically motivated, right? Like status or money. From there, just to kick things off, have a look at these three areas of the what we call MVP, right? The physical, the psychological, and the meaning. Now, think of something you can implement as soon as possible, ideally by tomorrow. So out of these three, where do you think you can make the biggest jump right now if you would want to move towards a purpose-driven career? Because the road you might take is not going to be easy, which means that physically, psychologically, and on a meaning level, you need to think on a bigger scale and think, what is actually important to me right now? So yeah, take some time and think about, where can I make the biggest leap? What's the low-hanging fruit for now? Yeah, and maybe for those, I'd be quite curious to see actually, maybe you can pop in the chat which of these three you think would lead you to a more purpose-driven career, or where could you make the biggest jump the easiest? Yeah, don't worry about the camera, by the way, Sarah and Helen. Thank you for letting us know. Great. Okay. So purpose-driven career is not something you can start overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes self-reflection. And we need to figure out what you perceive as meaningful, right? And since this is more about just a job, there also needs to be a bigger plan and a sense of direction. Now, whenever I explain this to people, I always get the same question, which is, I would really like to have a purpose-driven career, but where do I start? How do I make that transition? How do I know where to look? And what questions should I ask myself to make that transition into something that is inherently more meaningful to me? And the easiest way to do this is by developing a personal mission. For those of you that have been in workshops by us before, you might be familiar with this concept. So a personal mission is a tangible statement that is really meaningful to you. And basically everything you do is done in an effort to bring you one step closer to achieving that mission. So the easiest way to think about a personal mission is basically as the North Star of your career, or maybe even your life, right? So it guides your decision making and it guides your behavior. And by having a personal mission, you narrow down the search. So you know where to look for your next job or what idea you want to launch, because you're clear on which direction you're going. And just like with the North Star, it's not necessarily that you're trying to get there. It's more about having a sense of direction and knowing where you want to get to. It's interesting that a lot of people are saying that psychological is actually where they need to make the biggest step. So working on self-limiting beliefs, changing your mindset. Yes, exactly. So that's an interesting one, that for many people, actually that step is not about necessarily practically making that step, but actually how do I psychologically deal with that change? How do I make that happen in my world? So that's very good. So when it comes to a personal mission, it basically consists of three parts. You might be familiar with these three elements: why, how, and what. Simon Sinek talks about it a lot when he talks about companies. Actually, you can also apply this to yourself. So your why is what has meaning to you. So this might be that core thing which you are going to build your career around. Then there's the how. These are the skills and arguably the mindset or the habits that you have or that you're going to develop. And these skills, mindsets, and habits are there to help you get closer to achieving your personal mission. So you have the mission, and then you have the skills and the mindset that are going to get you there. And then the last part, and that's only where you finish, that's the context. So only when you figured out what is meaningful to you and how you can execute on that, are you going to think about the context in which you're going to do that. That might be a job, it might be a personal brand, or it might be even starting your own business, depending on the skills and mindset you have or the ones that you want to acquire. So it might be interesting for yourself to try to develop this, right? And as you can see here as well, it follows, you can just start off, you can follow the following template, right? I want to, and that's where you fill in your why or what has meaning to you. I will do this by, and that's where you fill in the skills and maybe the mindset or the habits that you're going to adopt. And then the last part is, I am going to do this in the context of. This might be an idea you're going to launch, or your job you're going to search for, or whatever it is you're going to do next. To give you some examples, My personal mission is to help people question their reality, find out what truly resonates. That's my why. That's why I do things. That's what I perceive as meaningful. I try to do this by asking hard questions in one-on-one conversations, giving talks, and facilitating workshops. So those are my skills: one-on-one conversations, giving talks, facilitating workshops, and asking hard questions. And then the context is, I do this in the context of my job at Uprise. That is literally why I'm here with you today, right? This is the context in which I can execute on what has meaning to me. And you can also do this for other things, right? So I don't know, if you're really into the climate and you find the climate crisis very important and something meaningful to work on, you could say, I want to help solve the climate crisis, right? That might be your why. I will do this by initiating or starting initiatives that activate others to use less plastic. If you're a super good project manager and good at starting new projects, then maybe that's the skill you're going to use to tackle climate crisis. Now, the context in which someone that might do that would be starting their own little business called, I don't know, one bottle less or whatever it might be, right? So again, the process is flipped. You start with what has meaning to you, the skills you're going to apply, and then you're going to think about the context. Then you're going to steer yourself towards that purpose-driven career. So when it comes to the personal mission, I'm curious to hear if there are any questions around that. As I said, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat, or maybe this is all very clear. And also feel free to say if it's useful or not. Now, as a bit of an experiment, I would like to do a visualization exercise with you, which sometimes can be super powerful. And because developing a personal mission takes time, it's quite hard. It takes a lot of reflection, and there's many ways you can do this, right? There's many things you can take to get insight into what is actually important to you. And one of the tools that is sometimes super helpful is visualization, like really trying to picture what it would be like if you would have executed on your personal mission, for example. So that's what I would like to do with you today. So what I'm going to ask you is to sit back and relax. That's where we're going to start. Feel free to turn off your camera for this part if you want to. So during this visualization, you'll probably notice thoughts will come and go, right? Switching topics, switching images. Don't get too hung up on this. Just let it happen and follow the narrative that is forming in your mind. Do try to create a sort of narrative in relation to the questions I'll be asking you. Now, in the beginning, I will talk a little bit. I will set the stage. And from there, I will basically do an interview with you, asking you questions which you can answer in your head, in silence, obviously. Sometimes I also will be quiet after I've asked a question, just to give you a little bit of time to think about your answer. And I also will be asking questions throughout, which means that sometimes, my apologies up front, I will interrupt your thought process because obviously I don't know where you're at with answering things. So just try to keep up. I think you'll be all right. And I'll also let you know when we get to the end. So just, yeah, let it happen and be playful in your head. For now, let's start. So please sit back. I recommend you to close your eyes, make sure you're sitting in an active position, and yeah, and try to go all in. So before we start, take a couple of deep breaths into your stomach, your lower belly, and try to empty your mind a bit. And whenever you feel ready, you can close your eyes. Now we're going to make an age jump. So you've just retired from your job. So I first would like you to try to imagine what that would be like. So you're sitting on a chair and you're looking down at your own hands. They might look a little bit more wrinkly. You're a lot older than you are right now. And you're in quite a calm mindset. You feel happy and content because you've finally retired after all those years of work. And you did an amazing job. People are so proud of you. And as you're sitting in your chair, very comfy, reflecting on it all, you almost forget why you are here. Interview. You take a look at the wall again, and you see the smiling picture of yourself with your name on it. You stand up and have a good look at it. It's a pretty cool picture of yourself, even at this age. And you've been so looking forward to this interview, because it will be an interview with your favorite interviewer. You're also a little nervous. You are, after all, standing backstage at the biggest talk show on television. So you calm yourself down a little bit, and you're getting ready for your TV performance. You take a deep breath, and you feel calm and collected. Nothing can happen to you. You have a smile on your face. You can hear the presenter. They're building up to your introduction, working up to call out your name as you stand behind the curtains. And there it is. The presenter shouts out your name and the curtains open. You walk on stage, the lights shine in your eyes a little bit, and there's this huge applause. Everyone is so happy to see you in real life. You realize there's nothing to be nervous about. This is going to be great. So you sit down in the comfy chair as the interview kicks off. And the interviewer says, "We're so happy to have you here with us today. We've waited such a long time to get you on the show." Now we're going to dive straight in. I mean, everyone knows obviously what you've done. But for those of you who don't, can you briefly give an outline of what it is you created? You have a little smile on your face. You start the following sentence. "Well, let me tell you what I have been working on for all these years." "Yes," the interviewer says. "And one of the things that strikes me is that it seems to be so meaningful what you've been working on and what you've been doing. Can you talk to me a little bit more about why this was so meaningful to you?" "Amazing," the interviewer says. "Thank you. And if you look back over the years, when was the moment you decided to become the person you are today? What was that pivotal moment?" That's great. I have one last question for you. It's obviously been one hell of a ride, but you look so happy, so healthy, and so fit. How did you actually manage to do that? Thank you so much for coming. You get up, you shake the interviewer's hand, and you walk off under a big applause. That's the end of the visualization. So people can get back if they want, or turn your camera back on if you want to. Yeah, I hope that was interesting and potentially even helpful. Sometimes very surprising. Sometimes people find it very difficult to come up with a picture. Others find it super easy. So for now, I'd like to give you 5 minutes to answer the following questions. So yeah, the questions are: what have you uncovered when it comes to meaning? Did something surprise you? Was it things you already knew? What needs have you uncovered? So maybe during the visualization, you realize like, oh, for me, this is actually super important. There might be certain elements when you think back about how you want to look back at your career. Did you have a lot of free time? Were you working full time? Did you, I don't know, were you working in a team? Were you working alone? What kind of context were you working in? Were there certain needs that you discovered? And the last one is, how would you define success? If you jump to your future self, you let that future self decide what the success would look like in your career. What definition would your future self come up with? When your future self would say that was a successful career. Great. I'll give you guys one more minute just to finish your sentences, maybe. I'd be super curious to see what you got out of this. Marie just said that she really liked the exercise. That's great to hear. Yeah. What definitions of success have you come up with, or has it changed, or has anything else come up? Feel free to unmute, but also if you want to pop it in the chat, I'd be super curious to see what came out of this. So we wait for another couple of seconds for people to finish. And also what might be helpful is to, obviously now it's only 5 minutes, which is quite short, but to really dig in deeper, to maybe after the workshop, take your time and think about what comes up, or you can even take it further yourself if you want to. Cool, okay, let's move on. So now that we've talked about the personal mission and how you can form your own personal mission and what it takes to get into a purpose-driven career. Something else that is good to talk about is what is called the entrepreneurial mindset. So what is an entrepreneurial mindset? To be honest, it's quite hard to define what it actually is, but there are some core elements to it. And the entrepreneurial mindset is not about starting the next, I don't know, TikTok or Twitter or whatever, and basically burning out along the way, trying to scale as fast as you can. We are talking about it more in a pure form. So the word mindset and not career is actually very deliberate. So we believe there's only one way to actually get the entrepreneurial mindset, and that is to launch your own purpose-driven idea, whatever this might be. So these are what we believe to be the sort of core elements of what an entrepreneurial mindset is all about. So creating value from nothing, growing as fast as you can, executing when something is good enough and not waiting for that moment of perfection, reflecting and learning from failure, which is all about a growth mindset, adopting the most effective habits along the way, believing in your ability to reinvent yourself, not seeing yourself as this sort of static version that is what it is, but actually as something that can evolve and that can change over time. Maybe right now you're not an entrepreneur, but you might be one in the future. And also being open to whatever comes your way. And that's super important, because especially when you launch your own idea, you never know what's going to come. It's impossible to predict. So really being flexible towards that. And to connect the dots here a little bit, for a purpose-driven career, you need to experience impact, growth, and meaning. And the easiest way to do this is to develop a meaningful personal mission. And the easiest way to execute on your personal mission is through an entrepreneurial mindset. And if you think about it as well, like entrepreneurialism is all about learning as fast as you can, which is all about growth and making an impact. If you think about it, the entrepreneurial initiatives that have had the biggest impact on our lives, and the businesses that have been started over the last couple of decades, they are the ones that have made the most impact, right? So meaning through personal mission, impact and growth through entrepreneurialism. That's why these three and entrepreneurialism go so well together. Let me see, someone just said something in it. Success for me is having a positive impact in the lives of others, helping to create more beauty, equality, and community in the world, freedom to travel and share with friends and family. Yes, exactly. I really like that definition of success. Thank you for that, Deirdre. So the reason we believe that people should launch their own ideas is because there is no hiding in the marketplace. When you actually launch your own idea, you'll learn more in 1 year than you'll learn probably in 10 years in a traditional job. And the good thing about launching your own idea as well is that it allows you to work on things that you perceive as meaningful immediately, no matter how small this initiative is. And it's completely about taking full ownership of your own personal mission. Now, from there, once you actually launch your own idea, there are 3 entrepreneurial options you could possibly follow. So the first one is, launching an idea on the side. So if you start your own initiative, again, I just want to reiterate, this is not about starting the next big tech startup. It can be anything. It can be the smallest thing you could possibly do that you would perceive as meaningful, and actually launch it. So once you've done this, from there you could decide to keep it basically as a side hustle. You keep your initiative, maybe only costs you a couple of hours a week, and you keep the initiative running on the side, as sort of a side project that you're doing next to your job. Another option is to completely go all in on it. So you take your idea that you've launched, and maybe you've done so well that it actually can become your full-time job, which means that your purpose-driven career is immediately full-time. Or for those of you that after having tried to discover that, or actually having tried to start their own project, they discovered that entrepreneurialism isn't necessarily for them. So what you can do from there is actually join a purpose-driven company, ideally a small team, because that's where the most growth is. So for that last group, you need to realize that your position has just dramatically improved by actually launching your own initiative. So because you launched your own idea, you now know what it takes to actually start a company, and you are super clear on your personal mission and what has meaning to you. So going to a startup, and startups are often very purpose-driven, right? Because they don't have the money yet. All they have is their passion and their meaning in what they are doing. That's the only game they can play, because the money isn't there yet. So they only attract people that are believing in the same mission. So going to a purpose-driven startup and being able to tell them that you've already been there and done that by launching your own project, and that you know what is meaningful to you, and that overlapping with what is meaningful to them, that's a huge offer. And you will even have proof of this, right? That it is actually indeed meaningful to you, because there's so many people that, even with us, they come to us and they say, "Oh, I love what you do." Well, sure, but how do I know that you haven't sent that email to about 1 million other companies, right? Whereas if you can show me a website where indeed you talk about growth, meaning, and impact, I'm like, oh wow, okay, this person is actually serious about this, because you have your website, or you have your testimonials, or you have your, I don't know, pictures, or whatever it might be, that shows that you're actually all in on this mission. Because the transition, especially from corporate to the startup world, I think is very much underestimated. And by actually launching your own idea, no matter how small it is, will massively improve your chances on actually getting into a purpose-driven company. Building on that, I would like you to think about 3 ideas that you could launch that you think would give your meaning. And again, it doesn't matter if it's small or big. Think about an area that you perceive as meaningful and what sort of initiatives you could initiate to get that started. And feel free to be a bit playful with this. So, we're only thinking about concepts here. No one's asking you to do anything. So whatever it might be, feel free to write it down. Cool. Okay. I hope you came up with some good ideas, and maybe something that you potentially actually want to work on, and maybe even maybe you could scale it down and see like what could be the first step I could take. Actually launch this idea without having to go all in full time. So yeah, I would recommend you to have a think about that after the workshop. Then we're getting to the last part, and when you're changing careers, it is incredibly important to also build a community and a network, because launching an idea is super hard work, and switching careers is an incredibly lonely process. So it's very important that when you go through this process, you also find the right people around you, and you also find the network that you can actually leverage, because no one has ever started the business completely alone. It's always a shared effort between people that are going through the same experience. Now, in relationship to that, there's also this thing called the hidden job market. So when you want to switch to a purpose-driven career, it's incredibly important that you start your network, that you start to talk to people who work in the industry that you're interested in. And especially when finding a job, because a lot of people I know, they start to scroll job boards and they hope to come across this one meaningful ad. They just happen to come across being at the right place at the right time, and then hope they apply, and being in competition with probably hundreds of others because it's such a meaningful advert, and then hope that they get the job. Whereas actually there's this massive hidden job market, right? And it is estimated that about 70 to 85% of all jobs are filled through personal networks. meaning that the job you actually see on the job boards are only a very, very small portion of what's actually out there. And obviously, the more meaningful the job is, the bigger the competition probably will be as well, if you're not trying to go for the highest salary jobs. So if you want to join a purpose-driven career, get super clear on your mission. What is it that I actually perceive as meaningful? The more specific you can become, the better. And find companies and people that align with your mission and start having conversations with them. And by being super clear on your mission, you're tapping into a certain sort of energy and excitement around that mission. And when that's the energy you use to reach out to people, very often the person on the other side responds very positively. They're like, wow, yes, this is indeed your passion. This is indeed what is important to you. So is it for me. Let's have a conversation about it, right? Let's start this network of like-minded individuals that are working on the same thing that they perceive as meaningful. And by doing that, you can actually tap into this hidden job market. Because as soon as jobs become available, like we said, a lot of them are filled through personal networks. If you're in that network and they know you already are on the train of whatever it is that's meaningful to you, and you're also clear on the skills and the habits and the mindset that you've adopted, and you can even show what you've already done, then you're probably the first or second candidate they're going to think about before they even put that job on a job board. So that's the network you want to tap into. So I just want to leave you with the last exercise, and that's something I would recommend you to do after the workshop, not now, because this will probably require a lot of research. Basically, find 3 people who work in some way related to your purpose-driven career, right? And reach out to them and have a conversation. Ask for 20 minutes of their time. And all you have to do is say something like, hey, I noticed that you're doing X, Y, Z in this area. I'm super interested in this. I'm passionate about this. I started my own area in it. I just want to talk about it more with people that have done this before. And yeah, very often when I say this, people get a bit scared, like, oh, but why would they make time for me? Of course, not everyone's going to reply. But by having the excuse to reach out, because it's not about you or wanting something from them, but all you want is to have a good conversation about something that is meaningful to you. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised, are actually a little bit honored. Like, don't go for the CEO, but maybe go for someone, that just works in that company. Not a lot of people will ask them for their time because people are fascinated what they do. So you'll be surprised how many people are willing to have a conversation with you. Yes, that was basically it for me for this workshop. I hope it was very useful. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. Katie, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stephen. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Just before we go, we do have some time for some questions. If people want to stay and chat for another sort of 10 minutes or so. If you do need to shoot off, please feel free to reach out to me and Stephen. Our emails are just up on the screen there, or I'll just pop our LinkedIn pages just in the chat there as well. Also, if you are, if anyone is interested in, kind of going all in and launching their purpose-driven career, then do have a look at our upcoming program. We've got one starting in November. I'll pop the link in the chat there as well, so you can have a look. So yeah, if you need to shoot off, then do feel free. If you have any questions or if you want to stay around in the chat, then please do stay and fire away questions.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and feel free to reach out on LinkedIn at a later stage if you feel like, oh, I want to know more about this, or just want to talk to Katie or Stephen in one-on-one. Feel free to do that. I'll stop my share.
Hey, can I just say something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for this initiative. It was really, really cool. I just wanted to highlight 3 things that I learned today, that some of them I remind again, but it's really nice to focus. One is what you mentioned, Steve, to believe in your ability to reinvent yourself. This is something that I really, really, really need to remember every day, because we are constantly evolving. So we need to believe that, yeah, what we were 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 years ago doesn't mean that we need to stay the same. And the world is evolving, and so are we. Another thing that I really like that you said was that we need to take ownership for our own personal mission, and this is like the bottom line of everything. Like, you owe it to yourself and also to the world, like to do your mission. So this is something that really inspired me. And then the last thing was what you were talking about, the network and the environment. And I've been reading about this, and it's really super important that you find what people start talking about, like finding your tribe, the people that believe in the same things as you. And for me, sometimes it's super difficult because I look around and most of my friends, they don't have the same interests as me. I'm evolving through some ways that they are not, and it's normal. And yeah, I'm also looking to find more people that think as me in some areas of my life, not just professionally, but also personally, like regarding, for example, sustainability and how we can improve our presence here, for example. And yeah, it's actually super important. It was something good for me to remind, because I'm doing a career shift from communication to more project management, and yeah, I really need to connect with more people on this side. So it was a really good reminder. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, and on the first point, what you mentioned about we are not static human beings. Like there's this, it's quite a good book actually. It's called Personality Isn't Permanent, by a guy called Benjamin Hardy. And this is interesting because he also refers to a lot of research. Is that when you ask people, like, if you compare the person you were 5 or 10 years ago with the person you are now, people find it super obvious that they changed a lot. And are like, yeah, of course, now I'm able to do X, Y, Z. I've learned that all over the last 5 or 10 years. And yet, when you ask them to project who they are going to be 10 years from now, there's only a very small percentage of people that assume they will go through the same amount of change, right? So for some reason, we always believe that there's this quote, it's something like, people are work in progress who wrongly think they are finished products, or something like that. Like at any day we wake up, we have this feeling of the person I am today is the person I will be. Whereas if you ask them, are you the same person that you were 5 years ago? The answer is no. So it's very important to realize that, and how we can change, and how much we like. It's not that you aren't something, it's just simply that you aren't something yet. And if you put your mind to it, you have a very good chance of learning it, right? Maybe you're not an entrepreneur yet. Maybe you're not someone who can work for a purpose-driven company yet. So I think that's incredibly important, Sarah. And yeah, I completely agree with your whole point around thought leadership and finding your tribe. If a mission is very purpose-driven, people pick that up. People smell it. That it's not about you and your ego, but it's actually about, hey, I am a channel for a certain mission. Would you like to join me, right? And I think like an amazing example of this is someone like Greta Thunberg, right? And the point is not that we all need to be like her, but the 17-year-old girl with a piece of cardboard. That's all she did, right? Sitting in front of her school. And now she's talking to wherever, right? United Nations, etc. And this is why launching an idea is so impossible. Is so important. And it shows that really nothing is impossible in that sense. That all you need to do is start to take ownership of that mission and start to execute upon it. And if it takes a piece of cardboard, then use that piece of cardboard. Yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. It's very, very insightful.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Okay. I don't know if anyone else has questions, and otherwise we can run things up. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you all, everyone, for coming. I hope it was useful. And as we said, if you want to reach out on LinkedIn or email, feel free to do so. We are always happy to talk. And we'll hopefully see you in a future workshop.
Definitely. Thanks, guys. Have a really nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.